My friends, don't be sad it's over. Be happy for all the aliens we met all along the way. Yeah. This week's episode promises us that we're going to find out who the real monsters are. Because it's not the aliens. Of course, it's not the monsters that are the monsters. It's the people that are the monsters. We get this really cool, slow opening where we have the Xeno on the prowl, walking up on Dame. She's sitting at the graves, probably feeling really shitty about what she's done and how much, maybe more so that it's blown up in her face so bad. That's probably more what she's thinking about. But the Xeno comes up right behind her. She senses it. She turns around. Of course, she doesn't die. Some security guards show up. I don't know if they were there already or if she got lucky. They're probably with her. There are aliens running around the property, the island. So most likely they were, called in. Just makes me think, is Dame a good person? We get to the end of the episode. You have Marcy, Wendy talking to her saying, you're no better than the rest of them. You did all this for yourself, blah, blah, blah. Is Dame a good person? My spidey sense tells me she's a good person. I think she is. She might be selfish. Who's not, to an extent. Her and Arthur seemed like good people. Maybe Arthur is the only good person, the only good grown-up. I don't really know for sure. But I got the impression that she was a good person. Marcy seems to think otherwise. She's also a kid, so she doesn't exactly have the best judgment. I guess we'll have to wait and see on that one. We have Ainz giving this status update to the boy genius. He's saying all the terrible things that are going on, all the things that have gone wrong, how all their incompetence has led to this terrible moment for Prodigy and for all the grown-ups on the island, for everyone who's on the island. And of course, Cavalier's distracted. His ADHD is king in his brain. To be honest, I can relate a little bit. They even have Kirsch call out later in the episode that his ADHD is a problem and talks about his meds and all this stuff. So I definitely empathized a little bit with Cavalier here. He's still a terrible person. It doesn't justify anything that he does. It doesn't justify how incompetent it made him and how, he couldn't just stick to one thing, and especially when the stakes are this high. But yeah, I don't know. Just thought it was kind of funny. He's always distracted. He's always on to the next thing in his mind. But yeah, dude, what a fucking mess. It's just such a mess. It's crazy how bad they've fucked everything up. It's insane. Then we find out Curly didn't end up snitching last week. At least she promised that she didn't, although it really does seem like that's not what happened. So I'm kind of curious. Maybe one of you knows. I'm not really sure how they ended up finding out. They might have mentioned it in the episode, and I'm just not coming to me right now. But yeah, it was kind of nice to follow back up on last week that it wasn't Curly that snitched. She kind of sees the light and comes around by the end of the episode. We have these awesome 2 shots back to back where the boy genius looking on through the security cameras, and Wendy shuts them off. He's like, what's going on? And he turns in his chair, and you have this like camera that's mounted to the chair, most likely is how they did it. And then he turns this way, and then it cuts to another one that's like over his shoulder. That was really sick. It's not anything that we haven't seen before. Like, it's not super novel, but I don't know. I just thought it was really tasteful and it looked really good. I just appreciate good camera work like that. And that was beautiful. We got this scene in the trailer, and we see it here in the show, where Moro's eye is like fucked up. It seems like it's just because, when he got knocked out, when he got captured last week. But I thought for sure, I was so sure that it was a hint at the boy genius using him as the subject for Teosulus to take over. Eventually we find out that it's poor Arthur's cadaver that gets taken over. With a really creepy scene, the way he just, it shows him like dig his eyeball out, and then it gets in there, and then the way he like sits up, it's like a wide angle shot. He sits up and then just turns his head. It's super creepy. Another one of these cliffhangers that they're leaving for next season. Little annoying. I'm kind of frustrated just how much of an episode full of cliffhangers this was. It feels like there should be a whole nother episode, or at least another half of this episode, and make it a long one. I'm curious what you thought too, because yeah, it really was disappointing. I thought this episode, from an otherwise pretty fantastic show, I was a little bit bummed that it ended the way it did. Then we get the security team, Hermit's friends, like going into the elevator that opens by itself. I was so confused at this scene at first. I was like, why the hell does an elevator in this research facility have a self-destruct feature? Makes a lot of sense. As the scene went on, we find out it was like Wendy messing with them. And then, yeah, I don't know. It was just kind of funny. And then Smee is like, just counting down, and somehow that gets translated through the thing. I don't really fully understand how that works, but whatever. They definitely hint that that's what's going on. But that was pretty funny. I liked that. It was just kind of, at first I was like, why would an elevator have a self-destruct button? It's so weird. But in the end, I guess Wendy's just having fun. I'm not sure I really understand the motivation there on her part. It was funny though. Okay, that Kirsch and Morrow fight was honestly pretty sick, especially the way it ends with, we have Kirsch like flopped over the table. He's bleeding, It was a pretty good fight. It was short and sweet and stuff, but I actually dug that pretty hard. That was pretty cool. Then we get the plant alien. It looked like a plant. I don't know if it has a name or not. And it gets free. It crawls up the wall. It is so much faster than I ever would have guessed it was going to be. So much faster. And as we'll see later, when it gets the Hermit's friend on the security team, and it just like annihilates her. It's like, it seemed like I appreciate that they kind of planted the seed of this thing being very timid, around the hybrids when it was out on the ship. It's not moving. I guess that's why I thought it was like a plant, to be honest. And then also with that thingy flopping around. And then it's kind of just always in the background throughout the show. And then we get to this episode. And really well done, that kind of build up to this. And then it's fast as fuck. And then it's just like crawling up the walls. And it just, the way it like clamps down, it sucks up that one lady on the security team. And it's just like, it's like almost like the biggest threat. It's not, but it feels like it at this point. Maybe it's because it was just a surprise. But yeah, that was pretty cool. I thought that was handled really well. We have the boy genius show up in the cell where all the hybrids are. Doors locked, all that. He's like taunting them and stuff. And then Wendy Marcy has this super gangster moment where she just snaps her fingers and the door opens. It was just so perfect. And the other best part about that is it looks like the way that they're all sitting, they're like perfectly dividing the frame, and they're like perfectly laid out, and then they look like it's like a rap album cover. They're all like sitting there, cool. And then Wendy's on the floor in the front. It totally looked like a rap album cover. And then the way she snaps is so gangster. It kind of all came together. Yeah, I'd buy that record for sure. It was at this point when Cavalier's explaining the story about how he built himself a new dad, essentially, that killed his real dad. And I was like, it for sure has to be his fixer, right? Ainz has to be the synth that he built, that he's telling this story about. He's just too loyal throughout this whole thing. He's never really questioned Boy that much, as far as I can remember. It ended up being the case. In my notes I just have after that, I was right. Then as we get to the next scene, we have Hermit being led to the slaughter. That's funny. Lamb to the slaughter is the expression, and he's going to the lamb, but the lamb's not being slaughtered. He is. Nice. But yeah, we have Hermit being led to the lamb. He's being lied to about why he's going there. Then we have Hermit, and he's like, I'm fast as fuck, boy. And he like dodges Teoslas, and they have this awesome fight. And then he's just barely getting away from him. It looks like he's going to lose. And then Wendy shows up and saves the day for him. That was pretty sick, the way she shows up and just, again, freezes Ainz. That was the moment, I think, that's the moment we realized that he's also a synth. And that was just cool how she showed up and saved him like that. And then just because he's on the network, she can control him too. That's so cool. Very interesting. Does that mean she could also control Kirsch, or is it just for whatever reason Ainz is on the network because he's in charge of security and he's kind of running everything? I'm not really sure. But yeah, just cool how she shows up and is able to do that. And then they start to, the Teoslas escapes. They start to round up all the grown-ups and stick them in the same cell that they were in. But yeah, in that moment, I was just thinking like, damn, Wendy's so fucking strong. She's so powerful. She's too OP. Yeah, we get this kind of mediocre ending. Kind of disappointing. It felt like it was coming to this climax, and it just felt like an episode full of cliffhangers. What we get with Arthur and, Teoslas, cliffhanger. What we get with Yutani showing up to the island, cliffhanger. what we get with the conversation with Boy and everyone stuck in the prison. Wendy saying we're in charge now with her sidekick Xenomorph. Another cliffhanger. One or two of those is okay. Like, it's okay to have cliffhangers to get you excited about the next season. Every plot line, everything that's happened in this episode being a cliffhanger, I don't know, I find that really annoying. Just felt like half an episode, or like there should be a 9th episode in the season, maybe even a 10th, and then we have like, it feels like a budget cut or something. Like we should have had all of Wayland Yutani show up, and and Yutani herself, Yutani the Younger. Yeah, so it, like, a great season, a great show. This last episode just didn't really hit quite right for me. There's some great scenes in it. A lot of stuff landed really well. Some good fights, but yeah, overall, little disappointing. But yeah, I had a lot of fun watching and reviewing and discussing this show this whole season. Excited for whatever comes next. Make sure to stay tuned. If you like what you see, sub and like the video. I'd appreciate that a lot. And I know your time's valuable. I appreciate you spending it with me, and I will see you guys soon.